Good evening. This is the regularly scheduled October 19th, 2021 meeting of the Geneva Historic Preservation Commission. I am Paul Zollmer. Please note that in accordance with the COVID protocol, all elected and appointed officials, staff, and visitors must wear a face covering while at City Hall, regardless of vaccination status. In order to help reduce background noise, I would remind all remote participants, elected, appointed, consultant staff, or citizens to use headphones when speaking during the meeting. This will eliminate echo or feedback caused by external speakers. This meeting will include a video conference utilizing the GoToWebinar virtual platform. With the use of electronic meeting platform for this meeting, there will be some technical difficulties as we move through our agenda. So please be patient. Every individual desiring to listen or to participate in this meeting has been provided an opportunity through the virtual participation information included in various public notices in the agenda for this meeting. Public participants may either provide comments through written comments submitted prior to this meeting or by speaking in person at this meeting. When it is time for public comment, staff may choose to read into the record any comments received in writing in advance of the meeting. Following the reading of any written comments, both in-person attendees and members of the virtual audience will be able to provide comments in an alternating manner, with in-person attendance beginning first. This will allow time for members of the virtual audience who wish to speak to raise their hand through a virtual meeting platform hand-raising feature. Virtual audience members will then be called upon, unmuted, and given an opportunity to comment. After providing comment, each speaker will be muted once again. Please note there may be a slight delay between the becoming unmuted and being able to begin to speak. All comments will be recorded so written minutes can be prepared for this meeting. Finally, a reminder that all speakers in person and remote are asked to present their comments in a respectful and courteous manner. If inappropriate language or comments are expressed during the meeting, the speaker will be muted and the speaker's participation ended. It is important that the items scheduled for tonight be heard to allow the city business to move forward and continue without delay. To ongoing development, protection of property values, preservation of resources, and promotion of the city's economic vitality. I now call the scheduled meeting of the Geneva Historic Preservation Commission to order. Can you call a roll, please?
Sure. Hartman?
Here.
McManus? Here. Solomon? Stazen? He's not here, okay. Jensen?
Here.
Zinke? Here. Chairman Zellmer?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Great, thank you. The next item on our agenda is approval of the meeting minutes for September 21st, 2021. Does anyone have any comments or revisions to the meeting minutes? Having none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I move to approve the minutes from our previous meeting, which was on
September 21st. September 21st?
September 21st.
And a second?
I second.
Okay, thank you. And you could call the roll. What's it?
Okay, I'll call.
Yeah, call the roll.
All right. Hartman? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. McManus? Aye. Jensen?
Aye.
Zinke?
Aye.
And Chairman Zellmer?
Aye.
That passes.
Great, okay. Next on our agenda is the 5-minute field guide, exploring architectural terminology, not technology, but terminology. Okay. Michael.
Okay, why is it not advancing? There we go. Thousands of architectural terms exist to describe the parts and pieces of historic and modern buildings that surround us. Volumes have been published identifying parts of buildings, yet even among preservation professionals, architects, and contractors, we continue to grasp for the correct terminology at times. This evening's 5-minute field guide reviews 12 terms that may be found in architecture throughout the Geneva Historic District. The first one is jerkin head. Jerkin head is a gable end of a roof that slopes backwards towards the top to form a small hipped roof end. It's also known as a hipped gable. It's most commonly associated with the Queen Anne, Tudor Revival, and Craftsman styles. Cornice. It's the molded and projecting horizontal member that crowns an architectural composition, or a prominent continuous feature that crowns or surmounts a wall, such as a cornice at the top of a commercial building as shown in the lower level, or the uppermost part of a classical entablature.
So Michael, number 2 is the cornice,
Number 2 is the cornice.
and 2, 3, and 4 are the entablature.
Number 1, the entire composition, and we'll talk about entablature in just a moment, so we'll clarify that for you.
I just do that.
I know,
I'm
that's all
hoping for
right.
fascia, but
And fascia. It's a flat and usually horizontal member of a building, typically covering the exposed ends of rafters above the eave soffit. It's also a flat, wide horizontal band on a wall surface, particularly comprising an architrave. So for those of you who were looking at the image last time, number 4 is the architrave in a classical entablature and column. Entablature, for those of you who are jumping ahead, is an element found in classical architecture. It's the entire band of horizontal elements above the column capitals or an engaged pilaster. So most frequently we see this in classical architecture, and particularly in Illinois we see it in Greek Revival buildings. The broad, simple massing of an entablature was easy to recreate with the simple tools that traveled easily with pioneer carpenters. Batter. A batter is the slight slope inward toward the top of a wall, pier, or column face. The slope may be a straight line or a concave curve. Most typically, many people are familiar with this as seeing battered columns or piers in craftsman-style architecture, but you also see battered walls in Egyptian Revival and Moorish architecture, and also as parts of ramparts. Think about prisons or sea fortresses. Voussoir. A wedge-shaped or tapered stone or brick used to construct an arch. The central voussoir is called a keystone, placed last as a wedge to lock a true arch. Keystone voussoirs are oftentimes larger and sometimes project slightly from the face of the arch. When an arch is composed of brick in authentic historic architecture, the brick is called gauged brick because, as you can see in the lower example, the brick is actually tapered. Oftentimes in a modern brick arch, masons will use the same size brick of regular dimensions, and they will increase the joint width to get the joint. But in a historic arch, the brick is actually tapered to create gauged brick and create individual voussoirs. Cartouche. An ornate or ornamental frame, typically scroll-shaped, surrounding a tablet. It also refers to the convex, circular, or oval bas-relief decoration on a wall. It's often associated with classical and Georgian architecture. Its roots are from the Latin charta. Additionally, cartouche may include an inscription, a date, or a name in addition to any bas-relief sculpture. Sometimes you'll see a coat of arms engraved in them as well. Coin, which is also pronounced coin, is the external corner of a building, especially any of the larger squared stones which mark the corner. Typically, coins are dressed stone, usually laid so that their faces are alternately large and small. They can be very formally dressed and cut, or they can be more natural, as in the lower example, in a more primitive stone wall. The idea is that coins were implemented as a way to strengthen a corner or to strengthen the corners so that additional height could be added to early buildings. Water table. It looks very different in a masonry building or a frame building. It's the projecting decorative molding of a masonry wall where the wall thickens at the point just below the first floor joists, as shown in the circled element on the upper image. In wooden buildings, it's a wide board, typically with a cap at the base of the wall and immediately above the foundation, circled in the lower right. Depending on where you are in the country, a water table in frame construction is known as many different things. It may be called a water board or a splash board, and sometimes in brick or wood construction, it's known as a weather table. Bulkhead, we've used this word frequently when looking at commercial storefronts. It's an upright partition separating spaces or compartments. It's the area between the exterior sidewalk and display windows of a commercial storefront. As you can see in the upper right image, there are different ways that a bulkhead can be treated. On the left, you can see a recessed panel, which is fairly common. On the right side, you can see it has small windows located in the bulkhead area. The bulkheads that were glazed with windows typically provided light into the basement that was allowed to shine into the basement underneath the display platform behind the storefront windows. Cheek wall. The side wall of an object. In architecture or landscape, it's the flanking walls of a staircase. They also are known as abutments or wing walls, and they can be of coarse stone, carved stone, or brick. Brick cheek walls are typically associated with craftsman bungalows where the walls may flare out and terminate with either a light fixture or a planter urn. Vitrolite. Vitrolite is a proprietary term that has become associated with the material itself. It's pigmented structural glass used for a variety of applications, including commercial storefronts and bathrooms. It's associated with the Art Deco style. It was originally marketed as Sanionyx for the use in commercial refrigeration units in the 1920s. Later, another product was introduced called Carrara glass, and then Vitrolite was introduced. And in the mid-1930s, the Libby Owens Ford Company sponsored an architectural competition to encourage architects to find creative ways to use Vitrolite in modernizing storefronts. Today, Vitrolite and Carrara glass is highly prized in historic districts as a representation of the evolution of historic buildings. And it can be salvaged by using hot wire to get behind the glass and cut it off of the mastic. It was introduced in 1900 by a company in Indianapolis, Indiana, and the last company to be producing this type of glass was in Germany, and they ceased production in 2020. In some restoration projects, they have found that back-painted glass creates almost the same appearance when trying to patch broken glass on a storefront that was finished in Vitrolite. So those are 12 terms you can use at the next party or gathering you're at to impress your friends and neighbors. And for those who are architects in the room, hopefully that was a refresher course for all of you. Do you have any questions or comments?
Of course I do.
Of course you do.
Vitrolite.
Yes.
Have we seen that on one of the storefronts that in the past couple of years we have approved work on?
Not since I've been here.
No? Oh.
Use your microphone, please. The nearest storefront is the Goodrich Tire Company across the street from the City
Yes.
Hall.
Yeah.
That has a Vitrolite storefront.
Does, okay. So I had remembered something that looked like black glass that was at the bottom of the storefront windows for the building that was a dress shop, and then it's now part of a restaurant. Where we were urging them to keep the appropriate storefront spacing?
It was a jewelry store.
Yeah, oh, jewelry store, yes.
And that was not vitriolite.
That was not,
But
okay.
it was black.
Okay, okay. And can I ask you to take 5 minutes and write down these words, give us a really quickie description, and send it to us? Would you do that?
Sure.
Is there anybody besides me who would like that?
Or can you just share the 5-minute field guide with us?
I can, all 5-minute field guides get posted on the city website.
Oh,
So
okay.
you can look at any or all of them at your leisure. So this is not the only time you get to see it, and that's good, works for the public as well as the commission. It's available on the city website.
Fantastic, thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you, Michael. The next item is a review of conceptual development plans, 218 Peyton Street. Matthew and Shannon, Mayor, and Sean Gallagher, architects.
Thank you. 218 Peyton Street is a concept review for a proposed addition. Peyton Street, the property on Peyton Street is located in the North Geneva Historic District, listed in the National Register of Historic Places, and it's also in the northern half of the local Geneva Historic District. The property that's being looked at this evening was built in 1906 as a parsonage for the Methodist Episcopal Church, which is now the Geneva United Methodist Church. The house was moved from its original location on 2nd Street, just north of the church, to this location in April of 1997. Just to verify that for you, this is an image on the left from CANE-CAD, which is available through the Kane County government, that shows the pad being prepared in the autumn of 1996 in preparation of the move. And you can see the house in the lower right-hand corner before, where it sat near the church before it was moved from 2nd Street. Also then, there's a newspaper article from April of 1997 discussing and identifying that the building had been moved. And so we do have good verification of the building being moved in the spring of 1997. I want to correct the staff report right off the get-go. In the staff report, I mentioned that the garage was historic, and I was in error. So I am thankful that Sean Gallagher, the architect for the project, submitted these images to verify that the garage is a modern construction. So I did confuse this with another nearby property, so I apologize to the commission and the applicants. So just to kind of run through the images that are available to look at, and before I turn the podium over to the applicants, this is the proposed site plan. As usual, I have tried to identify the various parts of the project by different colors. The blue section is the original house. The green section above is the historic open porch. The yellow area is the proposed additions, and the pink area is a proposed deck at the rear. The reason this application is coming before you is that only a small portion of the addition is visible to the public right-of-way, and that's primarily the garage. The rest of the building addition has been tucked behind the original house with the use of offsets so that it does not meet our requirement for review, and the roof line has been held equal or below the existing ridge. Elevations have been provided by the applicant. I'll let them tell in more detail. Again, they're available for your viewing and questions. Again, to give you an idea of what's being proposed, again, the green is the porch, which faces Peyton Street to the north. The blue is the original 1906 house. The orange areas, or they appear kind of a pinkish on the screen, are the areas being proposed for demolition at this point. Again, the basement plan showing the sections of the home. The darker yellow is the area with a full basement. The lighter kind of flesh tone or yellow color is the location of slab on grade, essentially. Again, the first floor plan and second floor plan and the roof plan. So with that, that is the general introduction. At this point, I would turn the podium over to Matt Mayer and his wife Shannon, and they can begin the presentation, then Sean Gallagher, architect, will join them. And I can get you to any slide you want to get to.
Sounds good. Does this need to be turned on? Is it already on?
I think it's on.
Okay.
Thank you.
You might have to raise it.
Well, thank you for the overview. Thank you very much for your attendance this evening and giving us this opportunity to present our project to you. Also, thank you for your service and being part of this commission. But even greater than that, thank you for the hospitality, and thank you for welcoming us into the community. We haven't been in Geneva for a long time. We just moved in July. And, you know, I think that we've definitely felt like this is a great community, and we've been welcomed in by new friends and new family that we consider to be part of our own. And we think that this project is really going to plant some roots for us and for our family. We have 3 children at home, and that's a big part about the project, is just to be able to grow with the house and be able to have our kids grow with the home as well. So.
Yes, we feel so welcomed. It's been so exciting being part of this community. Our oldest son, our 9-year-old, is like, the first thing he tells people is, we're in the historic district. Like, it's a huge deal, so.
Good for him.
We really feel like, you know, our intent is to embrace the historic nature of the home. We really feel like it has a great story that it already tells. As Michael kind of alluded to, the fact that it was the parsonage for the church and that it was literally raised and moved to its current location is just a pretty cool story to tell. And as part of our design process with Sean, I've actually already reached out to the Historic Museum, and I've also reached out to the church and asked them both if they have any historic records or photographs or anything that they'd be able to provide, that I would be more than willing to take them or to kind of rifle through any files or anything like that in order to try to identify what the previous character of the home was. Because our intent is to, I've contacted downstate in order to discuss preserving the historical nature of the home, and hopefully to work with them in order to make sure that it maintains its integrity and the project is successful, not only for the addition, but also for the front half of the home or the existing home.
Yeah,
So,
we love the way it looks. I mean, it's very charming, so.
But with that being said, I think that we'll probably turn the fine details over to Sean.
The expert.
And be available. Yeah, if there's any questions, I guess, before we turn it over. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening, Commission members, and thank you for allowing us this opportunity to talk a little bit about this project. As Michael mentioned, the front, and do I get to toggle, or are you in control? You are, okay. So maybe we just go to the front elevation. There you go. Great. So I don't know that you have the existing elevations, but the existing garage currently sits about just a little bit less than 8 feet off of the east property line. This addition, the garage, will be 6 feet off of that property line. So you're going to see about 2 more feet of the garage. But otherwise, the garage that we've designed essentially is very similar to the existing one, other than the garage door has a bit more character. We're using a Clopay coachman for that to give it some additional character from that end. It will be for parking cars, and then, of course, a little bit of attic space for storage. But otherwise, it will just simply be, thankfully, an attached garage. Right now, it's detached, so getting from it into the house takes a bit of a process. In terms of the west portion of the addition, you just see a sliver of it. You've got about a foot of exposure of it. And all of that starts, or at least the garage itself starts, I wrote this down, the garage starts 93 foot 6 inches back from the front property line. So the front of that garage is 93 feet and change. And then the addition on the west, that ends up being about 83 feet back. So what you're seeing here is, is just simply the ghosting of the addition into the background. Now, one of the things Matt mentioned was that we're giving consideration of doing a revealing on the house and possibly restoring the siding. We don't know what the siding is. And none of the photographic evidence we have from from the church or from the History Center gives us any indication of what's under there. We will know when we start to expose the back, when we start to get at connecting this new addition to it. So there are questions of condition, things like that we have no idea about at this time. But we aspire to restore the siding, the trim, everything that's there right now underneath this existing aluminum siding. For all we know, it could just be Tyvek under there and sheathing. I don't know. But we will know once we get to the point of exposing the back. You'll also notice in the drawings we indicate utilizing, so right now they have metal storm units. So, and in some cases when storm units are missing, all the metal frames are there. We'd like to remove those and put in Marvin combination wood units. So they're essentially a triple track system, but from the outside, they look like a traditional wood storm unit, so that it actually functions as a weather barrier, but also looks more in keeping with the style of the house.
Is that removable then? I mean, is it,
So usually they're going to be hung just like a traditional storm.
Storm,
Yeah,
okay.
so they have hooks at the top, and then they'll have the butterfly nuts on the, yeah. And then as far as siding material, we'll be using smooth LP. And again, depending on the lap right now my lap matches the existing aluminum siding. But we'll see what we have underneath. So it'll be exciting, right? Yeah.
Of course.
Questions?
So the exterior siding on the garage in question is going to coordinate with whatever's happening on the house?
Exactly. And all of the new addition.
Okay.
Yep.
you are removing the whole garage, the garage is being demoed?
It is.
that's-
And if done skillfully, we may be able to salvage some material.
Oh,
Because it is 1997 vintage. It would have been built, well, it could have been a little bit after the house was built, but certainly wasn't there when it got moved. So,
okay.
Okay, well, if the building itself is aluminum sided, and who knows what's underneath it, when you say the siding on the addition in the garage will match what's on the original house, you don't mean you're gonna put aluminum siding on that
No,
because
ma'am.
that's what's on the original house now? You don't mean that?
I do not mean that.
I thought that.
No, what I mean is that when existing wood siding is exposed,
Right,
we will be matching that lap.
okay.
Otherwise, if it turns out that it's all Tyvek underneath,
Uh-huh,
then Matt and Shannon are gonna have to make the decision of, okay, so what do we do then?
yeah,
But whatever the case is, if it's all Tyvek, we'll be coming back to you
Right.
with a request to do LP smart siding smooth
Right.
with a lap that is appropriate for the style and the vintage of the house, and everything will follow that lap.
I see, okay, thank you.
You bet.
Sean,
Yeah.
so if, the siding is taken off, the existing home, and, let's just give an example, the original siding is on there. So what assessment will be taken to make a decision whether, it can be repaired, or, the aluminum all taken off and the whole house repaired? At what point will that decision be made? Because that can obviously be a large financial cost.
It could be. We'll probably have you come out and help us. But to that end, what will end up happening probably is, so not unlike what we did with Giampoli, we're going to have to, which is it's the house directly across the street due north of this house. We'll have to actually do a sort of an assessment board by board and do a full photographic, presentation. And then we'll have to run the numbers, because one of the things is that the house has to be, the expense on this has to reach a certain threshold to meet the possible tax freeze that's being considered. So there's going to be a lot of questions
Right.
with that.
Okay.
If I can, just elaborate on that a little bit about the assessment process. If you are familiar with our window, or our siding policy rather, if it's less than 10% replacement, that's just considered ordinary maintenance, so they would just proceed with doing ordinary repair. If it's between 10 and 25% of any one side, then they need to consult with staff. If it's more than 25% replacement on any single facade or elevation, then it does come back to the commission. And as they mentioned, they're looking into the possibility of the tax assessment freeze, applying that here, so the state will also be assessing the siding as well.
Yeah.
So there will be a process that they will have to come back and go through.
Okay. Thank you, Sean.
You bet.
Sounds great.
Does anyone have any issues with the design as presented? I don't see
I
any
do not.
problem with it. It meets the requirements of, it's less than the existing house in height, and I think it's pretty clear where the breaks are and things like that. I think that actually your siding that would be a good break
Yeah, for sure.
to show that. So, but any other?
And the lot coverage is fine?
Yeah, so they're in a really neat neighborhood. They can cover a lot of their lot.
Oh,
It looks like it.
60%.
60%.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
Oh,
Yep, so if you can find properties in that neighborhood, do it. So, yeah, and also FAR is 60% for this. The district is a group of letters. It is the DMHR district. It's
Okay.
not R1, R2, R3. It's the sort of the unique set of districts that are in the downtown historic district that have been.
If you recall, the commission reviewed the zoning update requests about a year ago now for the special downtown district. So this is one of the first projects you're seeing under that new downtown designation that gives a little bit more opportunity to develop the sites a little bit more intensely in the historic district.
I think the intention is multifamily, but if you've got a single-family home that you want to expand, it does allow you some latitude.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments from the commission? Any comments from the
Staff?
ether?
From the ether?
Oh, the ether.
No, staff has no comments at this point. Again,
Or the go-to-meeting people?
there are no raised
okay.
hands that I see.
Thank you, Sean.
Do you have anything else?
Nope, that's it. We just wanted to make sure you were kosher with it, and we'll look forward to seeing
Looks
you.
good. Well, when do you think you'll be back?
Probably this winter at some point for a spring groundbreaking.
Sounds
The
great.
intention, so, yep,
Okay.
good. Thank you.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Yeah. It'll be a busy winter.
Yes.
You can have catalogs all over your dining room table.
Okay. Next, review of building permit applications, 116 Campbell.
Thank you, Chairman Zelmer. 116 Campbell Street is in the southern half of the local Geneva Historic District, and it's in the central Geneva Historic District listed in the National Register of Historic Places. The property is a contributing property in both historic districts. The Colonial Revival Dutch Colonial home was built in 1923 for Emma Rice Swarthout. The predominant materials of the building are a concrete foundation, clapboard siding at the first floor, shingle siding at the second floor, which both have been covered with synthetic siding in recent years, 3/1 double hung windows, an incised or recessed porch, a straight plain gambrel roof, full-width dormers, and a brick chimney. The house was lived in by the Swarthout, Mrs. Swarthout, from the time it was constructed and finished in July of 1923, and she and her 3 daughters lived in the house for over 50 years. The proposal before us this evening is to add a new front porch in front of the historic facade and the original recessed porch. Again, following my conventions for color coding for your ease of understanding, the blue section is the original house, the green is the historic porch, and the pink area is the proposed porch to be proposed to be built. The architects and the applicants have provided a 3D rendering of the property, and they will be making a presentation shortly. I just wanted to point out a few things to you to understand what the proposals or what the changes are. If you see the blue highlighted area, you can see that the amount of wall surface on the dormer is going to be reduced by about 2/3. The upper arrow on the right shows that they're introducing a curved roof over the porch. There is a large arched entry bay with no porch lintel. There is, and we'll have the architect and the applicant explain this a little bit more, but it appears that the existing eave will be removed so that the siding can be extended upward beneath the new porch. The rendering shows a fairly open railing system and a closed apron at the base of the proposed porch. So again, to highlight a few things for the discussion this evening after the presentation is made, I've highlighted on the left elevation of the architect's drawing the areas of change to the proposed facade. So it will be a reduction in wall area at the dormer. There is, the orange area is some new siding and apparently a modification of the eave. The pink areas are proposed posts, and there are details that were provided in the packet and in the presentation here. The railing system has also been detailed, was included in your packet. And then also you can see that the architectural drawings indicate that there are, it's just exposed structure on concrete piers rather than a traditional pier. And the architectural drawings do not indicate any kind of apron that is shown in the architectural rendering. Also, on the lower left drawing, I've highlighted what you see on their elevations. The dark bluish purple line shows the original roof line, and then the green line shows the proposed curving new roof that reduces the amount of the dormer. And then the other items there that are highlighted in the same colors as the image above relate to those same issues. So again, here are the details that have been submitted by the architect, showing the structural connections to the existing historic facade, as well as the details of the balustrade and the deck itself on the right side. With that, I would like to turn the podium over to Jeremy and Melinda Sharp, who are the owners of the property, and their architect, Nicholas Mannheim. And they've got a presentation, and I can just run through it as you tell me to go to the next image. They're the images you provided.
Sounds good. Hey guys, I'm Jeremy Sharp. It's very nice to meet all of you. My wife, Melinda, is, oh, she's coming.
Oh my.
So this is my wife, Melinda, and our soon-to-be baby, Isley Gale. Due in November, but we'll see if we get there.
The doctors don't think we're gonna make it that far.
So we moved up to the area a few years ago, and you know, it's funny, our realtor actually dropped us off. We saw a couple houses and dropped us off at Graham's Coffee Shop on 3rd Street and just absolutely fell in love with the area. We were in a hurry to move up here. Nothing down here was available, so we bought a house in St. Charles. And the minute something popped up down here that we liked, we nabbed it. And so we actually found out that she was pregnant the day after we purchased the house. So, you know, it seems like a good sign that we're moving here. We've really enjoyed being here. You know, we walk down to 3rd Street all the time and just really enjoy being outside and in the area, and it's just a really cool spot for us. So, do you have anything to add?
Hope that pretty much covers it.
Okay. And, you know, and with the front porch, you know, we're really looking forward to sitting outside with our little girl, watching her grow up and watching the everything go by in the city and all the people walking and being able to get to know everybody, because, you know, even though we've been here a few years, so is COVID, and we have not gotten a chance to get out and meet a whole lot of people yet. So really kind of wanting to use this as an opportunity to get out and meet people and just be available, you know. Nick, is there anything you want to add?
No, did you have the PowerPoint that we?
Yep,
Yeah,
it's right here.
yep, it's right here. Yeah, so Michael stole a lot of my thunder, but I'm glad for that, you know. I'm glad you guys had an opportunity to see all of that. So one of the things that really drew us to this area, you know, we both, and especially my wife, are, you know, really love historic homes. You know, when we had the opportunity to get a house that had the character that this one did in the area that we could find it in, it was just an incredible opportunity for us. And so, you know, that picture in the top left was actually left for us on our countertop the day we bought the house. And so we're going to frame that and put it up. And so, you know, really what we want to do is accentuate what the house already has, which is a ton of character. As I'm going to go through and show, we did a lot of research on the era, the time period, and other homes like it in the area, because what we didn't want was to take something that was so cool and historic and try to modernize it. We want to embrace what it is and just add to it in keeping with the times. And so I'm going to go through a little presentation on that. And you guys already saw the rendering and the elevation, but we can come back to that at any time that you guys want.
Yeah, and we try to pull a lot of the details from the Dutch Colonials, because if you look at Dutch Colonials over the history, there are a lot of details, and that's why I brought in the curve to it. So we kind of looked at the history of that, and we wanted to make sure.
Could you introduce yourself, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry, Nick Mannheim, architect, for Mannheim Architecture. So as we were saying, we just try to pull in some of those details. As Jeremy mentioned, we didn't want to take something and lose the history of it, so we tried to look at how we could do that and bring in some of those other details and combine everything together.
And I did want to mention too, the original porch that was recessed was, according to the picture, open air at one point, but it appears that it was closed in. Actually, the person that owned it back in the 1980s happened to walk by while we were outside and told us the story of how he applied and actually did the enclosure of that porch. So really, we're also trying to kind of bring back that element of being like part of the community, being able to actually sit outside, you know, with the people walking by,
Right.
And be able to really like kind of take part in that, like the house was originally built.
Yeah. So the next few slides we're going to go through, just kind of going to show some pictures that, you know, of homes in this historic district that are, you know, Dutch Colonials that have similar to what we're looking at. So this is on 2nd Street. This is literally right around the corner from our house. I could throw a baseball into their backyard. But they have a front porch with, you know, the curved architecture of the peak above the door, and then also, I'm not near. I should have been paying more attention, but the terminology. So they have a nice front porch. It's a little hard from the picture to see, but there's a nice patio on that one. You can go to the next one. This is just down on Fulton Street. This is very similar to what we'd like to do. Again, with the curve over the patio and the posts and the covered porch.
I think this is a new house.
No, it's not a new house.
That one is not a new house? Oh, I thought it was. Okay. I don't mean this one.
No.
I mean the previous.
The previous one, I'll let them go through their presentation. If you have questions about any of them, I can answer those for you.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Then this next one is another Dutch Colonial, again with the curve. So that's where we got a lot of our inspiration from. You can go to the next one. And then, you know, again, another example. Go to the next one. And so the next thing we did was we went online and looked up examples of, you know, this is something we had kind of done originally to get inspiration for what this might look like. So we went online to find, you know, homes early 1900s, Dutch Colonials, what did their porches look like, you know, so that we were in keeping with the times and that we made it look like it was meant to be that way all along, right? So we got a couple of examples here from 1910 and then 1916. And then you can go to the next one.
Which I will say, we looked more in the teens because we were actually, when we bought it originally, told that the house was built in 1914. So we thought that we were looking more in the teens than the 20s, but I think there's a couple of examples from a little bit later as well.
Okay. So again, that gives you kind of an idea where we got our inspiration from that time period. I think this might be the last one, but had to throw it in from Fort Wayne because I'm originally from close to there. So
We're both originally from Indiana, and we got out as fast as we could after college, so ended up in Illinois, so.
and then the Verona on the right is very similar to what we're trying to do with our front porch.
I think we'll happily probably turn it over to Nick at this point for any additional details and questions, because we definitely don't have that expertise.
Yeah, as you saw, I mean, that's what we kind of pulled our inspiration for. We wanted to make sure we kept it open air. As Melinda mentioned, we wanted to bring in the curvature that we found in the Dutch Colonials, and we were trying to be sensitive to, we're trying to put a little bit more curve in that too, to carry that into our overhang as well.
I'm so sorry, if I can be excused, I'm gonna go sit back down.
You do that.
Thank you.
Do you want to, I'm sure you have comments, Caroline?
Well, yes, I do. I was trying to see the actual date that the building was built, and I've gotten to 1923, but I guess it's sooner than that? No?
No, the property was acquired in 1923, and she moved into it, I believe, acquired in November of 1922 and built in 1923.
I see.
They moved into it in July of 1923.
I see. Okay, so it was an empty lot, and she had the house built.
Correct.
Okay, good.
Michael, can you take us back to the very beginning with the original home, and then there was like those two photographs? Keep going. There you go.
Yeah.
I struggle a little bit with the porch and how much of it, there's some defining features that I'm looking at, and as I look at our SOI standards in number 9 and just thinking of how it's changing this original facade, it has that sort of defining kind of dormered feature up, it's very significant and pronounced, and I feel like it's sort of being lost. I appreciate your attempt at trying to make this porch look like other Dutch colonial porches. I just worry and I'm concerned about how much it gets shrunk up in that design, where that distance from, you know, the lower level up to that second story windows just seems to have been shortened so much by it. And a lot of those examples of, you know, the that kind of barrel vault that is happening over the doors is very deliberate and specific, and I feel like it's very sort of organic looking in this design too, and some of those are very centrally located, and this is kind of asymmetrical. So I have concerns right now. I don't know. Can we go to the rendering of the proposal? compared to the existing again, Michael?
Lisa, for what it's worth, the door is off-center. The door is not centered on the house.
I know, I just, can we go like,
Difficult to see on the original picture, that black and white.
Yeah.
But the straight part of the dormer is actually substantially less. You can tell they changed the roof line slightly, I think, when they enclosed that porch in. So it was actually slanted up almost to the windows.
but I feel like there's sort of a visual, presence that's happening between these two, because I can see the opening for the porch there. It's all very subtle how it was enclosed, but it didn't change the overall facade significantly. As you take, can I see that elevation with, it compares the existing building with the proposed? There we go. Yeah, I feel like maybe it's just a combination of things for me in here, where it's sort of burying some of the Dutch colonial. And I like I said, I appreciate what you're trying to do. I just, I'm concerned that maybe in the attempt of the functional need of having a front porch is superseding the fact that this is a home in the historic district that is a Dutch colonial home, that we have a responsibility to protect how that house looks. And some of those features.
Yeah. I would agree with what Lisa is saying. As you showed us all sorts of photographs, I have a feeling that this house is smaller and perhaps does not have as much architectural detail as some of those other houses. Perhaps this was a more simpler Dutch colonial than some of the other houses that you showed us, which appeared to me to be more elaborate. I too am concerned about the porch that stretches all the way across. I could imagine that perhaps you might think about reopening the porch as it was originally and put the front door back where it had been, and then you would have, I think from the plan, you would have a decent-sized porch to sit on, and you could have a railing in the front, as opposed to the photograph from 1925, which doesn't show a railing, it shows siding across. And perhaps that would give you what you were thinking about, enjoying sitting outside and talking to your neighbors as people walk by, and the baby sitting outside in a buggy having fresh air out there. But you would get what you want, and the building would stay as much to the original as possible. In fact, you would be doing a wonderful thing to make the open porch back to the way it had been. That's my thought.
Michael, could you go back to the original 1923 photograph? Yes. So what I see is the roof line on the 1923 photo, the roof line, the eyebrow is higher. It's kind of hard to decipher how far below it is from the upper windows, but not much space, right? Maybe a foot. On the lower photo, it's probably around 3 feet or so.
That's actually inaccurate, Don, when you do. And
That's inaccurate?
I'm sorry, the image isn't better on here. If you have your images in front of you on the computer, you might be able to see that break a little bit closer. It's actually, the dormer actually projects down a little bit further than where the bend in the downspout is, when you actually look at the actual
Okay.
photograph.
I guess what I'm trying to compare of these two photos here, the eyebrow, the roof line from the space between the bottom of the upstairs windows to the ridge line of the eyebrow underneath is.
I think that's still the same. I think that's what it was originally, and I think that's what it is now. I think what we're being thrown off by is the darkness of the,
Of the
both
second floor?
the roof and the second floor.
Yeah. That
Yeah,
that could be.
that's,
that could
but,
be.
yeah, and the darkness of the picture in general.
Yeah.
Your break is right about in here.
Yeah.
So if it's at the break of the gutter line where you're proposing, then, I mean, it really is higher than the photo below it.
The gutter actually breaks above the break between the roof and the
Okay.
wall when you see the actual picture.
Yeah,
I think it's just a differentiation in materials that highlights it more in the bottom picture than in the top. I don't think that any of that necessarily changed over time, did it?
I would not think so. Do you agree, Michael?
I think if anything, the vinyl sign might be projected a little bit further to give a little more thickness, but that's gonna be minuscule, but on a steep roof like that, it will show up a little bit deeper.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't have a problem with any of the newer roof lines that you have drawn with the, it's not truly an elliptical arch, but it's closer to an elliptical than, you know, than a true arch. I don't have any issues with your roof line in the front porch.
And I would say, Paul, you know, sorry.
We're recording, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I will get back up here. We initially picked that roof line with the curvature in it based on the research that we did and trying to keep with the time. So if keeping a more straight across to make it more in keeping with this house would be what the better option was, that's something that we would be completely open to. Like, we're not stuck on it having an arch. It was just that
Okay.
we were trying to keep with, you know, the historical accuracy, but if it would be better to have something that kept more of that level plane like what is originally on the house, then that would be perfectly fine as well.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Jewel, do you have a comment? You don't?
It's difficult because you are changing, I think you're changing the character of the house completely, and it's hard to, it would be hard for us to approve something like this without having, when, and it's always tough on the front of the house because this is the main facade that we look at, and, if it's more of the rear of the house wouldn't be an issue, wouldn't be as much of an issue, or wouldn't be an issue at all, we wouldn't have anything to say about that. But being it's the front of the house, it is difficult for us to look at this and say that it isn't a false sense of historicism, which is kind of what I think what you've described is what you were after. Unfortunately, that's part of what we're not supposed to approve is that sort of thing. So it's a real, you're supposed to be able to, I think the best way to look at it is if you go over to Graham's 318, which is a house that house was done a long time ago, and if you look at the addition that was done to the Graham's 318 house, that you can still see what the old house was, even though they have done so much work to that house and they've gone completely back behind and added so much to it, but you can still see what it looked like when it was originally built and had the character that it originally had. Unfortunately, I don't see that with this solution, and we don't want to design the project for you, but we have a duty to make sure that we follow the SOI standards that the city council have told us to follow, or that is basically the code of what we're supposed to do. So it's a real difficult situation. So I'm afraid that I'm not sure that this particular, and what I'm getting from the commission is that they don't feel that, I think that we're kind of in agreement that it doesn't really meet the standards that we're looking for. And I don't know exactly what we could probably point you in some, and I think Carolyn was trying to point you into where you could go with this to get something that would pass, but I'm not sure that, I know that this would not pass, so.
Well, and I think that some of this is that, I appreciate that you are researching
Yes.
other Dutch colonial homes to get a
Wonderful.
feel for what that porch might look like. I think the challenge here for you is that we have to take this Dutch colonial home and see the characteristics of this that make it specifically a Dutch colonial home. And then we really can't make big, visible, massive changes to it because we have to keep those proportions. We have to keep that general look. Not because there's another Dutch colonial home in another city that has this certain look with a certain porch. It's this Dutch colonial home that has to maintain these proportions and this aesthetic overall. And somehow you have to find a way to marry those things together so that when I look at this house, I still see that original house, even though you've got a porch on it. So that's the challenge.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think this is one of those rare occasions where I think we would want you to go back and look at what you're doing, because we're not really in the we don't want to stop people from doing things, but we want to make sure that what is done meets the standards that we're basically here to uphold for the thing. It's a really difficult position to be in. So I understand, and I think that we all understand that what you were going for, it is just difficult. I don't see us approving this particular scheme. So I think the way forward for you guys is to basically, I think Michael is here as a resource, and he is a great resource in the city to be able to sit down with and say, this is what we're trying to do, and how can we try to get there? And you would be willing to do, I mean, that's your, that's what your job is.
Job is.
So,
Yeah.
it's a difficult
Yeah,
position to be in.
yeah.
So,
If I may interrupt, I just want to inform everybody what the options are here, so that everybody's
Sure.
clear.
Yes. What are the options?
So, the applicant could request that you take action on the proposal that's before them, and then you can either approve it or deny it. If the commission chose to approve it, it would just move forward through the permitting process as normal. If the commission chose to deny the application as presented, the applicant would have two choices. They could either redesign, as Chairman Zelmer is suggesting, and resubmit, or they could appeal to the city council to overturn the decision of the commission. The other option that the applicants have this evening is they can take Chairman Zelmer's advice and withdraw this proposal at this point. No action would be taken, and go back and redesign to something that is more in line with what the commission is suggesting to meet the SOI standards and reflect the history of this house. So those are the options for the applicants and the commission, just so everybody's very clear what the what can happen from this point forward. So I don't know if the applicants want to confer for a moment and decide what you want to do. I think Chairman Zellmer's kind of represented what the commission, where the commission's at this point.
Chairman Zellmer,
Yes.
that open porch, I'm just thinking about an open porch that I sat on in a very similar house, oh gosh, maybe in the 1960s. It seemed like the porch had enough room for a swing in the front, and a couple of chairs. Does that seem to you that porch would be big enough for that?
I'm afraid I wouldn't venture a guess on that.
You wouldn't?
but
Okay.
No, I think that, I think we should let them make their
Yeah,
decision on what, I mean, I think that it is, everyone's home is their own.
that's right. That's right. I was just trying to get a vision as to how big
Yeah,
that is, or that was.
The entire house is fairly diminutive, so I don't think the porch has as much room as you're describing. But
Envisioning,
again,
yeah.
I've not been in the porch, but from looking at the plans, I would assume maybe a porch swing or maybe a chair and a small end table, but not all of the furniture you just described.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How wide do you think the house is?
Again, you can kind of see on the plan of the electrical, or,
Maybe about 30 feet?
I don't, but if you look at the plan, you can kind of see the floor plan, if you look in your packet.
The house is 24.42 feet wide.
24
So it's
feet
about
wide.
12 feet by about 5 feet is that porch, so,
Okay. So the porch is 5 feet
by about 12 feet.
by about 12 feet. So it's 5 feet deep and about 12 feet wide.
The existing,
The existing space
yeah.
that used to
No,
be porch.
Yeah. And again, I don't think that it's our position to,
Yeah, I know.
to make
Yeah, I
a
know.
design,
I'm just trying to visualize.
yeah, I know,
If,
I
if,
understand.
if what I was suggesting is actually feasible. That's what I was trying to
Yeah.
decide.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Certainly.
The idea that you stated about potentially removing the enclosure on the.
Can you come to the mag?
Sorry, okay. The idea that you said about removing the enclosure on what was the previous porch? Is that something that would be like if we were to withdraw this submission and go back to the drawing board to try and restore it more to what the original looked like? Is that something that would be worth bringing back to the commission?
Yeah,
I believe so. I mean,
so, yeah.
I think that that's something that, to bring the porch back to what it was, would definitely be something that I think that we would look at. And if you had any, I don't know whether there are any other pictures than that one. Probably not, right?
We tried to find them.
That's
We
the only-
could not
That's
find
the only
any.
one?
That was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
only one.
Well, at least you have that one.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a good thought.
But that is something that we could look at, you know, I mean, that would meet I think it would keep the form of the front of the house. And I think the distinctness of this, I think I shouldn't say the previous owners did a disservice, but the two-tone version of this really helps it because it becomes roof and then base.
Yeah.
But that's my architecture speaking, so.
And then when you come back, you can bring the baby.
Yes. She
Maybe.
absolutely will be. She's our miracle baby. We'd been trying for 8.5 years.
Oh, well,
We're excited to finally be expanding our family and
How
have a good
nice.
community to have
Beautiful.
her grow
How
up.
nice. Okay.
well,
All right. I mean, it sounds like this probably isn't going anywhere, so we'll come back to the drawing board and figure something out. I
Yeah.
guess that's about the only thing I can think of.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that you really want to use Michael as a resource
Yeah.
to see, because he knows the standards that we are to uphold.
Yes.
And that's really the key to this, to getting through this commission.
Yeah.
And we don't really like to not approve things either. But it's a difficult situation here, okay? So is there a formal way to withdraw, or?
No, they just have to verbally say what they're doing.
What was that?
Are you withdrawing this proposal? Is that what I'm hearing? And then you'll
Yeah,
come back
I
with,
guess.
with another option?
Yes.
Okay, so we
Okay.
have an affirmative that withdrawing
Okay.
this
Okay, all right.
proposal.
I feel horrible about this, and I hope, I wish you luck, and I know you can get something that we can approve. So,
Thank you.
thank you so much, and good luck.
Thank you for coming. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you. I apologize that I'm going to
You have nothing to apologize for.
No.
go home and put the feet
Right.
up.
Yeah, well, we women know what you're going through.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Okay. The next item on our list is the review of 122 North 6th Street.
Thank you, Chairman Zelmer. 122 North 6th Street is a site that is adjacent to what we just discussed a few months ago. It's on North 6th Street, and it is just south of Peyton Street, and it's in the North Geneva Historic District, listed in the National Register of Historic Places, and in the very northwest corner of the local Geneva Historic District. The house, for those of you who are really alert, will remember appeared in last month's 5-minute field guide as an example of minimal traditional architecture. So the way things work. This is the house that was built in 1938 for Arthur Pearson. And again, it's a very minimal house of the 1930s with minimal traditional details. As you recall from the 5-minute field guide, these are examples of other minimal traditional houses in the historic district. So as you can see, 122 North 6th Street is one of the houses that is more intact at the street level. Just for the fun of history and how these things come out, there were 2 articles in the Geneva Republican that Arthur Pearson took out a permit to erect a bungalow on his property next to the large family home in March of 1938. And the house was completed in September when he advertised it for sale and had an open house to bring people through the home that he identified as having Cape Cod appeal. One thing I want to mention is that the plan was taken from the Better Homes and Gardens magazine, and it featured silent tight window frames, which, and looking at the silent tight window frames, and it says that they're an insulated window. Interestingly enough, it was not insulated glass like we think of with an insulated window. Silent Tight identified their insulation system as weather stripping. That was rather new innovation for windows. So here's the plan that probably inspired it. It's from the Better Homes and Gardens built cost garden home plans. I believe that this is the house that was, oops, where'd that go?
Uh-oh.
Of course. There we go. As it said in the open house article, it was based on a plan, and again, I believe in looking at the the build cost garden home plans books that were available in 1936, 37, and 1938. It appears this is probably the plan that this house was based off of. So some historic precedent. Again, the image of the house. So if you walked by this property or visited the property, you notice that the east and south elevations are highly visible. The north elevation is less visible, primarily due to vegetation. The applicants have supplied some additional images that I've incorporated here for their use. I did mention that in 2015, an addition was added to the rear of the building, and it was wholly set back of the size of the building, so it was approved administratively to have a rear addition put on. It met the standards for that. It does have a cement fiber siding with a cedar mill finish, so the rough texture finish is on the addition. Here you can see the addition set back from the original house. And you can start to see some of the issues with the siding itself. You'll see in a lot of the photographs that have been submitted by the applicant that their contractor is circled in blue. So on the second board up from where the board's missing, you can see one of the elements circled in blue to indicate the extent of the damage of the existing siding. These are all owner-submitted images that identify various things. I will let them go through and describe them, but I will say that I did visit with Scott and Carrie Drumheller at the site on September 21st and did witness the damage and the issues that they've highlighted as not just being isolated examples, but these are widespread across the elevations of the house. So again, you can look at the south side, which is on the left image, and you can see it's been sandblasted. You can also see areas where there's dark spots and some of the blue circles to show the extent of the damage caused by earlier sandblasting, which opened up the wood. There's also areas where it's rotting from the underside, and there is also, at some point, a painter had caulked underneath each joint of the siding, which only further exacerbated trapping water and insect infestation, which is one of the reasons that this is coming about. As I mentioned in the staff report, I'm sure Mr. and Mrs. Drumheller will identify, they have been dealing with an infestation of carpenter ants and termites that were discovered after they purchased shortly after they purchased the home, and have that eradicated, but the termites have done quite a number on the siding itself. So the Drumhellers have provided a breakdown of costs like we require when a siding replacement request is made. They have included the elements that the commission has requested to see materials, including the removal of the historic material, the installation costs, finishing costs, and even the costs associated with the disposal of those materials. They have also provided as an example 201 North 3rd Street, which was referenced earlier this evening. This was the GM Poley residence that, if you recall, those of you on the commission at the time, the siding was determined to be beyond salvage and was replaced. I do have attached to my presentation tonight, if anybody needs to revisit that case to see why that siding was allowed, I do have that attached, but I don't want to put that before I let the Drumhellers make their presentation. So at this point, I would invite Scott and Carrie Drumheller to the lectern, and I can go through any of the images as frequently or as infrequently as you wish.
Thank you very much, Commissioners and Mr. Lambert. I'm Scott Drumheller. This is my wife, Carrie.
Hello.
We are the happy owners of 122 North 6th Street. We've been there about a year. We bought it about a year ago. I work on 4th Street. I'm a member of the Geneva Chamber of Commerce. We intend to be here for a while. So this is definitely about us trying to preserve this home. And thank you, Mr. Lambert, for including our home in your presentation last month in the field guide. I did watch that online, so thank you for that. We've learned a lot about our home. We've learned a lot about the history of our home. We made a visit to the Geneva History Museum and got an overview of many of the things that were included in there, although Mr. Lambert did include a couple extra tidbits that I'm going to have to get to help kind of complete that history. As part of what we want to do is we want to be sure that the damage that we found is eradicated and that it doesn't continue and that we're able to preserve this home for many, many years to come. As was in the presentation and included in the report, we found termites, we found carpenter ants, both outside the property but also inside the property. So we've completely eradicated that both inside and, to the best of our ability, to the outside. We also had a friendly woodpecker take some shots at our siding because I think of some of this and caused a little more damage. But as we really looked into the condition of the siding and we began to explore it more closely, we don't have trained eyes, but we brought somebody else in to help us see that, and we asked Mr. Lambert to also take a look. The sandblasting was something that I did not realize existed, but it was pointed out to us and clearly shows damage throughout all three sides of the house. The caulking underneath each board created a lot of damage and probably created the environment for some of the insect damage to begin with. So all of that needs to be fixed. And as we explored our options on how to do that, we believe, and our contractor believes, and I think the reports that we've submitted and the staff analysis shows that the historic wood siding's been damaged and deteriorated beyond repair. And so we're looking to do a replacement, and that's why we're here before you. As Mr. Lambert mentioned, it's a high percentage, a vast majority of the siding is being replaced, so we need your approval to move forward. We've taken a look at options. They're presented in our materials of two options that we've considered. We of course looked at replacement with the cedar wood plank. We obtained the pricing for that and how we would go about doing that. We also looked at the hardy plank product. The reason we looked at hardy plank product to begin with was the rear addition of the home has hardy plank on it, and it's now 4 years old, the addition, and it looks fantastic, brand new. There's absolutely nothing in need of repair, and so that definitely caught our attention if we could use a product like that. So we priced it, and as you can see in the materials, it's substantially less expensive, but that's really not the only reason we are interested in the hardy plank. It's about preservation and making sure that, again, this house is here for a long time to come. The hardy plank does match as much as we could to the original wood siding and the dimension, the details, and the style and the texture, and still is able to come in at half the cost. The points made in the reports that we wanted to point out, in addition to replacing the siding, we wanted to preserve the historic window trims, the details around the windows, the original architectural features. Although there aren't very many on this home, there are a few, and the eave bracket and the front stoop and the curving stone and the curving walkway. Those are things that we want to preserve. We believe that shows what the house would be like from the street. It would continue to look and have the same view that it does now, but of course with materials that would preserve the home for many years to come. If we were approved to use the hardy plank, as we removed the existing wood siding, we certainly would engage another exterminator to inspect the house after the wood plank is off the home to address any issues that we may have underneath that we don't know or that we can't see right now. we would certainly address that before we added any product back to the home. In addition, we would certainly be looking to periodically inspect the entire home, because it's not just an exterior concern, it was an interior and exterior concern. We would periodically do that as our exterminators recommend, but then we would also, as we proceed with any projects throughout the house on the interior, we would be inspecting whenever we could inside the walls, inside the attic, for anything that we did in the future, that we'd make sure that we were preserving the home both inside and outside for many years to come. I don't want to repeat every single thing that's in the report. I know that you all have looked at it, and it's getting a little late, and it's not certainly as exciting as maybe an addition to a home like we've heard in the prior applications, but this is important to preserve this house.
Right.
And so we really appreciate that you've given us the time to speak, that you're considering our application. Special thanks again to Mr. Lambert for coming over to our home and helping us see some of the things that we hadn't seen before. So at this point, our application is before you. We certainly request that you approve it. We would be happy to answer any questions that you might have at this point, but I don't want to continue on. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lisa, do you have any questions or comments?
Michael, earlier in your presentation, you had mentioned another home in district that had maybe hardy board or some other non-cedar siding installed. Can you go back to that? Is there, what was the compelling, right? Actually, the house, right, is that it right there?
Let me just, for those of you who weren't on the commission, let me briefly review that project, because I think it would be helpful to understand. So this is the project at 201 North 3rd Street that was approved in, I believe it was in November of 2019 for the siding to be replaced. So this house was built in the 1850s. And had significant termite damage inside the home, plus some very bad structural work that was done by plumbers and electricians and heating men over the years.
Oh, yeah.
And then when they were just doing the work, they discovered that the foundation was actually partially styrofoam that had been plastered over, and so the choice was made to lift the house as part of the additions.
Right.
So it was an extensive renovation. When they took off the or not when they took off, but this house had been stuccoed at one point in its life. It had also been sandblasted, and what resulted was a lot of damage to the wood, where the wood had started to cup and split. There's some examples of where some of the cupping, the splitting. You can see down the lower right where the wood behind, the siding behind it split right at the clapboard lap. The architect, who happened to be Sean Gallagher, who has since left, did a survey of each exterior elevation and identified how many boards survived without damage. So the historic frieze and entablature and trim were all retained, along with the window trim, but the sign itself, because of the sandblasting and the stucco finish that had been put over it, and the termite damage and some other water damage, revealed that a majority of the boards could not be salvaged. So on the front, a front porch had been put on at some point and had altered some of the material, and then also, like I said, the other impact. Again, the rear addition was not salvageable. The service wing was not salvageable. It had been remodeled and had some unfortunate structural events occur in it. And so the sign that was left, again, was inventoried, and was found that a small majority did not have splitting, checking, cupping, rot, what have you. And then again, all the way around the exterior. Like I said, in this particular case, the architect went kind of above and beyond and did an actual board-by-board count. This was a tax assessment freeze project, And the state was also requiring justification. I think that's one thing why Sean Gallagher did do the board-by-board assessment, was to not only make the case to the local commission, but to also make the case to the State Preservation Office of why the siding could not be salvaged. So that's kind of a quick overview. If you have specific questions, I can go into greater detail, but it's a very similar case where the house had both poor maintenance, sandblasting, insect infestation, and similar issues, checking, and boards that had, nails that had the, their galvanized coating knocked off of it and had rusted and created the holes to enlarge as the nails expanded, as they rusted. And so again, a lot of the same issues with this house exist in the Drumheller house as well.
And in that previous case, what was the siding solution in the remodel?
The commission ultimately approved the replacement of all the siding with cementitious siding.
I see.
And it was all replaced except for the historic trim and entablature and frieze boards.
I see.
And it was debated quite a bit as whether that was the appropriate thing in the end result. Looking at all the SOI standards and the actual condition, that was the determination that the commission came to on this case.
And the determination of the state,
And the
correct?
state, correct, yes.
Yeah,
The state did concur.
They concurred, so, yeah. And you were out at the site and did probably a little more harder look at this. Significant damage to over 95% of the wood siding. Do you agree with that statement?
I do agree. I did not take a board-by-board count.
No,
But
no,
when I did look at it, I will say virtually every board on the north and south side had some level of damage.
Sure.
The east side had a little bit less, but it was, again, widespread over the entire elevation. It wasn't concentrated on one area over another. It was widespread across all three elevations.
Yeah. Did they caulk the bottom of every board?
Yes.
Okay.
Prior contractor.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you caulked it. I'm
Of
just
course.
saying that somebody caulked it before that.
Every single board, yes.
Every single board was caulked.
Yeah.
They did a good job of trying,
They were very thorough on that,
thorough on doing that. Okay.
yes.
And the point of putting in the caulking, what do you suppose was their point?
They had a misguided idea,
Okay,
so,
Agreed.
but that's the way it goes.
that's how it is, yes.
Some people don't, building science is, it's
Yes.
not always intuitive.
Yes,
Buildings are meant to breathe to
Ah.
some extent.
yeah,
But the current thinking is to tighten a building up as much as possible. And
Right.
so in, like I said, some misguided attempts, some people go overboard in trying to tighten up an old house, and it doesn't really serve an old building well.
right. Now, I was there this afternoon, and of course, I can only stand on the sidewalk. I couldn't get up to the house. And you were worried about what I was doing there. You came out to ask me who I was.
I thought maybe you were lost.
Well, I am very frequently lost. But anyway, Michael, the condition of the wood on the east elevation, which is the front of the house, how would you compare that to the sides? Would you say, what I'm trying to figure out is there enough of the original wood on the east elevation to ask for that to be renovated in some fashion and then to do something else on the other sides?
That's a very logical question to ask, and I asked that myself when I was out at the job site. My professional opinion is there's enough cupping and other issues that you're never going to get a tight seal on this house, and I think it's largely due to the sandblasting. It's a very erratic sandblasting, so there are some areas that is deeply sandblasted, other areas are not as deeply sandblasted, which is really hard on wood because you have different thicknesses of the material, so it will act differently.
Right.
But again, and I don't think we have a great picture of the front, but it's got as many blue circles on it. In reality, when you start looking at it closely, And again, I'm not here to sell a case or not sell a case, but I don't think that you're going to have I don't think you've got material from the south, or from the south and the north sides enough to repair the damage on the front to have a uniform look. And new material is not going to match the sandblasted material, because if you get cedar mill finish cedar, it's not going to look like the pockmark sandblasted material that's on the wall.
That's true.
So I think you've got an issue of texture here, that even if they were to paint it and try to fill it and everything else, I think you've got some stability issues and you're not going to get a good match. And again, from looking at the north side, and the south side has some similar issues, there was active termite damage behind these clapboards, and so it's a kind of a guess as to how many of these clapboards can even be salvaged, because we don't know the extent of the termite damage behind. So it's a good question. I think it's a good philosophical question, but my professional opinion, from they're looking at it, I don't think you would get a satisfactory look. I think it'll look more like a patchwork quilt when you're done, and not be any more sympathetic to the historic look than it is right now.
I see. Okay.
Okay, so if I understand this correctly, the wood siding would be the preference as to the replacement of the material to make it stay in the historical integrity. But because of the sand blasting and the caulking and the termites and the other things that have caused so much damage, it would probably make more sense to make it more uniform so that it all kind of goes together with the addition and the replacement of all of it to be the hardy plank board?
That is in fact what we thought, and in discussions with our contractor felt like was the best solution, would be to use a product that is the same kind of product that is used through the rest of the home. Obviously, we want to retain the historical nature of the original home, the 1938 part of the home. So we're very sensitive to making sure we meet that standard. The addition is quite a bit different than the front part of the home. It's different in size, it's different in structure. It's built with cathedral ceilings and large windows that open to the back. It's very nice, but it's very new and modern. And so there's no confusing when I look at the two parts of the home, the original part of the home, the 1938 part of the home, and the addition. But material-wise, we're very pleased with the hardy board plank that's in the back. It's maintained its structure. It requires just very little maintenance after many years. We feel like that would be the best approach. And in addition, when we did the cost analysis, the cost right now of cedar plank is quite expensive. It's a function of today's world that we're in, and a function of supply chain, and a function of just the ability to get it is part of the challenge. So, that is part of it. But the other part of it is we have this other product that's worked very well, a similar product that's been used on other homes that had similar problems that our home has, and is shown on the comparisons here. That as we walk around the neighborhood and we look at homes, we saw this one, and we talked about it with Mr. Lambert. It looks consistent throughout the whole structure, and that's what we're looking to match the best we can, but also preserve the historical nature of the front, and also preserve the maintenance of what we have to do to keep the home looking as good as it can.
And just to clarify several points, because I did mention the staff report I've talked about with the drum hellers. Our siding policy would suggest that wood be replaced with wood.
Yeah.
They've made the point why they would like the hardy plank. I think this is a tough case, and I mentioned this to them. Wood provides potentially future food if the termites and carpenter ants do come back. Cementitious products hide that damage if it continues on, and they're fully aware of that. We've talked about the pros and cons of this. So in this particular case, there's no real 100% this is the best way to go or not the best way to go. In fact, I was so questioning myself what would be the appropriate approach, I reached out to my colleagues through the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions, hoping to get some feedback from people who do preservation in termite-infested areas and see what they would do in the same situation. I have to tell you, the National Alliance of Preservation Commission's listserv is one of the most chatty sources ever. And not one person was willing to offer me a response back of what they would do in this situation. So I don't want to underscore, I want to underscore that this is not a decision to be made lightly in either case, because there is no clear 100% way. If you were to follow the siding policy to a T, that might not best serve this particular instance. So it really is a catch-22, and I think it has to be kind of a gut reaction of what the commission feels best serves the longevity of this house, to preserve the basic appearance of it, because having lived in a house that had termite infestation, unbeknownst to me, it's a tricky thing to monitor. And they are going to be monitored probably on a very routine basis till they know after a period of time that it has been eradicated. The one thing I will say, and I did mention this in the report, and I have mentioned this to the Drumhellers, is that this is not technically an addition, but with additions, the SOI standards say that it should be differentiated. One of the things I did put in the report that I think the commission needs to discuss, and the Drumhellers need to discuss with you, is whether or not it is appropriate to use the cedar mill finish that's on the 2015 edition, or use a smooth finish on the historic part to kind of recreate that historic look.
Right.
The preference is to have the whole house match in texture, but our guidelines do kind of give you that option. So again, there's not a clear answer on that either. I'm sorry I'm giving you a case that is as clear as mud, but this is one you guys are going to have to chew on a little bit and come up with what you think is the best alternative, all things considered.
Well, Michael, you mentioned gut reaction, and my gut is that what you were just alluding to previously, which is the fact that termites can come back. And I've lived it, and I think we've all kind of seen it in one way or another somehow over time. I think that the standards require us to, maintain that texture and maintain wood where there once was wood, and I don't know that this is probably a great case for enforcing that, and my gut is to switch to a material in a home that maybe could have some future problems with wood siding. Within my gut would be to go with the alternate material that has maybe a little bit more sustainability if there was still some problems in the house. I don't think that necessarily is setting a precedent for future projects that don't have those issues and that, need to replace wood with wood, that we can still maintain that idea. With this one is just sort of protecting the property in general, considering we don't know what the future might hold. That's my gut.
A different way of looking at it, perhaps, would be if the east facade was resided in clear cedar, but the north facade and the south facade was resided in hardy board, but the hardy board would have the smooth finish as opposed to the sort of rough cedar looking finish. That's a thought that I have about making everybody happy, more or less. I know that cedar is much more expensive. I'm seeing this $1.60 versus $6.50 a linear foot. That is a lot of money. That's true. But unfortunately, this is the front facade of a historic house in the historic district. And I can understand, we've done this before. We have insisted that wood siding be used on the front of the house and other things could be on the sides and the back of the house. I don't know, Paul, if you were involved in any of those as the years have gone by.
I think at times we've done that, but we've done it with the idea that it was salvage siding that we were using, and it wasn't new wood siding and then cedar, or then the cement board on each side. I think that it was salvaged. We were looking at salvage materials that were from, the 1880s or something like that. And I think that this, if it all has to come off, I don't know whether I would have a problem with replacing it with the cement plaster, or the cement hardy plank, because I think that it's, for your gut reaction and my gut reaction are similar. I know that Michael has almost an opposite gut reaction of, if it's gonna happen, you're worried that you won't see that until too late, but,
Just for the record, I see both sides.
yes, I understand, and you're not voting, and I know that, but we trust your knowledge in this. Don, do you have any, I mean, you've seen a lot of this stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah, I have. Just to confirm, so on the addition, on the fiber cement siding on the addition, it is a rough finish, correct? It's not smooth?
It has the
Okay.
cedar mill
Right,
textured
okay.
finish.
Okay.
I would say it's subtle, but it is
Sure.
definitely textured.
Yeah, I mean, I think in this particular case, the uniformity would outweigh it with the same style of fiber cement siding throughout the whole house. That's just my opinion.
And the size of the planks will be the same, identical to what it is now.
What is that reveal? Is that a 4 or 5 inch? What is that? Not that it matters, but
I believe it's a 5.5 inch.
5.5?
I think so.
Yeah, it looks
I
like it's
forget
a
as
little
we
bit
stand
more.
here today,
Yeah.
but it is the same size.
Yeah.
But our standards insist that the siding have a smooth side. That's what our standards insist if we approve a cement siding. So I can understand, Don, why you're thinking it would be nice if the whole house matched. Unfortunately, historically speaking, that's something we have not done based on the SOI standards.
This is kind of an unusual case, as I mentioned, because usually when that standard is being applied, it's to an addition. But you are correct that our siding policy does call for new composite siding to have a smooth finish.
Right.
And usually, like I said, that standard's usually being applied to an addition. Here, the addition has been built with a
built right.
contrasting type of finish.
Right.
And so it's a matter of what is, the commission feels is the appropriate finish for the
Right.
front of the home.
I tend to think that all of these are kind of coin flips at a point. They're is the original siding was sandblasted, and you kind of went with the addition siding to match the sandblasted siding. Now you're coming around and it's going back to the same thing. And it's like, I can understand doing the whole house to be uniform. And
Uniform in texture.
uniform in texture and uniform and.
Definitely distinct between
Yeah, I
the
mean,
original
it's,
home and the
it's
addition.
distinct in
Yeah.
form more than anything
Correct,
else.
correct.
And I think that's what's, in my mind, that's what's important here, is that it be uniform or that the form of the original house be seen, and it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's that of the 1938 house. So, I mean, as the homeowner, what opinion do you have? I mean, obviously, you probably want the hardy plank because of the $16,000 difference between the two.
That's part of it, but it really is about also maintaining that complete look of the same material that's on the addition. That's not the only reason, but that's a very good reason. We've seen how it has sustained
Yeah.
in over 4 years. And the second being that, maintenance-wise, we feel like that would be helpful to us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess I have to say that I cannot approve. I can approve the cement siding on the front of the house. On the house, the original house. I can't approve the finish, which does not follow our standards, just because the addition, which, as the homeowner is telling us, is considerably different from the original house. I can't approve that style of cedar siding, that finish, is appropriate for this 1930-ish, 38 house in the historic district. So I would have to vote no if that's what the resolution says, what our proposal says.
Outside of texture, the cedar wood siding versus the hardy plank siding, the finish is similar? Like in color, in appearance?
Size, form, appearance, yes. Texture's the only thing I think that's different. And you know, I'm a layperson, I'm not an expert by any means, but I think the textured the textured hardy plank is subtle, and it looks like cedar. So I don't know how distinguishing it would be from a cedar replacement. But our
Well, it's our
preference is-
responsibility to kind of maintain that texture if we can.
Understood.
I'm in the position that we still want the house to be standing, you know, it's got, you know, cedar wood siding on it, and then, you know, it's in a pile of rubble 50 years from now, that's probably not preserving the home either, so.
That's true. That's true.
So I think, like I said before, I'm okay with the hardy plank being the solution,
What about the texture,
yeah.
which I've brought up?
What was that? I'm sorry, Carol.
What about the texture, the smooth texture on the original house as opposed to the cedar sort of looking cement texture on the addition?
I think, so what is your plan for the addition? Your addition already has the,
It is already as planned.
right, so
Nothing
it already
would
has
change.
the hardy board on it.
Yes.
And this is just the matter, I'm not too concerned about, I think that it's, to me, I do not feel that there is value in trying to salvage something from this home and salvage what is something that is deteriorated and already being attacked. And, you know, I think that there's also the potential for it to continue to be attacked. So you're spending money salvaging and moving around material that could automatically be an issue in future years. So I think that the hardy solution is the proper solution, as it was at 201 North 3rd
Yeah,
Street.
but I guess, what's your opinion of smooth finish versus the textured finish to match the rest of the house? Or do you have an opinion about that?
It's not ideal, and it's not something that would happen in a situation where the house already wasn't experiencing infestations and issues with termites and other, you know, that type of insect attack.
Well, I guess the question really, I think what I'm hearing from everybody is that the hardy plank is approvable. The question is whether or not you're trying to match a 2015 addition or a 1938 appearance of smooth siding.
Yes.
So
I agree.
I guess the way to look at this is, if I'm hearing everybody correctly, and I haven't heard Jules say much yet, so if I'm hearing everybody correctly, the hardy plank is not the issue.
No.
No.
The issue is to whether or not the addition should look like an addition versus the original house, or whether it should have a uniform appearance across the board. So if you were to take a step back and look at this as if the front of the house was in its original condition, would you approve an addition with smooth siding, or would you approve an addition with some kind of siding that had a different texture to set it off? That, I think, is the question that needs to be debated amongst you. And I will say one thing, and then I'll be quiet for the rest of your deliberation. But whatever decision you make, I would ask that whoever makes the motion, make it very clear why the motion is or isn't following the adopted siding policy.
Yes.
As part of your motion. So I will be quiet now.
Okay, so I guess the question to you, Lisa, is then, could you approve something that would match the texture, or would you want to have a smooth texture, a smooth finish?
You're talking about matching the texture of the addition.
Yes, exactly. We're kind
The
of,
solution will already, if we go with this hardy plank, that
You can get
solution
it-
will
you-
already match the addition.
you can get the hardy plank either in a smooth finish, or you can get it in a rough finish.
Right.
To match. So it's, either one of those is available. So it's really, we've decided.
Revelation.
Hardy plank is part, is I think I think what
I'm
I'm
sorry.
hearing from is the hardy plank is the answer.
Yeah,
We're
okay.
kind of just down to whether smooth or rough finish on the
Yes.
hardy plank.
I misunderstood a little
Okay,
bit there.
that's fine.
Yes, and if that,
it's
so if
once-
the hardy plank comes as something that's smooth, the addition, is the addition visible from,
No.
I don't know.
Front.
Well,
I
if
gotta
you-
think on, I gotta
If you
noodle on
stand
this
on
one
the
for a second.
sidewalk and you do this, you can see it.
There is a
It would be
slide.
nice to have it be smooth, and I think that's the
Yeah,
replication of texture is important.
Yeah, and I think that meets our standard.
Yeah.
And even though, I think you could go either way with it. I think you could make a comment that, you could make a statement that you're, in this specific case, we're matching what was done at the addition. Or you could say, I think we should fall back on the requirement,
I agree, I agree.
of the-
I'm sorry, my misunderstanding
of the
about
what?
the hardy.
the requirement of our citing policy, which is smooth.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely, and it's written in the standards, it's something we need to
Right.
stick
Yeah, so
regardless of
I-
what's
I-
on the addition. In my,
you could go either way, but
Paul,
With-
she agrees.
I
She
know.
said she agrees.
Okay, we're, I
good.
only got one left. Dawn was the only one that, no, do you have a strong opinion one way or another, Dawn?
I'm just torn between if this was my house or if this was someone else's house. But no, I do not have an opinion in either way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I can see it both ways.
Correct.
I guess I shouldn't say I don't have an opinion. You probably,
Well,
like
that's
me,
true.
you-
But
it's
sticking
not
with
like.
the
you-
Standards.
Yeah, yeah.
It should be smooth.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with that, I think we're probably ready to put together a motion, and is someone ready to do that? Lisa, do you?
I'm always putting together wordy motions.
Okay. Well, this one is not as wordy because I think it's just a matter of stating what we've decided, so.
I could do it. So I approve, I move to approve the request for the proposed siding replacement at 122 North 6th Street as the hardy plank siding, as long as that siding has the smooth texture to replicate the historic texture of the previously wood siding.
Do we want to, should we state in there that we're doing this because of the termite infestation?
I
That,
would think that would be wise to include.
Yeah, so, and also approved because, to be a synthetic material because the house previously had a termite infestation which could return.
can I get a second?
I would second that.
Okay. Call the roll. Or do you need to read it back? Okay.
Hartman? McManus?
Aye.
I can't read. Jensen?
Aye.
Zinke?
Aye.
And Zelmer.
Aye.
Passes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good luck with everything. I'm
Thank you all very
sure-
much.
I hope
Appreciate
you can
your
get
time.
the hardy plank
Thank you.
in the color you want. Are you getting it pre-finished?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, good luck with it all.
Okay, next is our secretary's report. Mr. Lambert.
Thank you, Chairman Zelmer. I just have two items. The first one, I'd just like to introduce the man back in the corner to you all. If Al, would you like to come to the lectern? I just thought it'd be appropriate for everybody to know, this is Al Watts, who is now working for Preservation Partners of the Fox Valley as in community relations. And I just thought it'd be nice if you had a chance to introduce you and identify a little bit what he does in his role for the Preservation Partners.
So I'll just kind of give you a brief introduction. I'm Al Watts, Community Engagement Director for Preservation Partners of the Fox Valley. I assume most of you are familiar with our organization, been around about 40 years. So we're a nonprofit, and what we do is champion a sense of place for the communities of Geneva, St. Charles, and Batavia. These communities have unique characteristics, and we want to try to help keep them that way. The character is where you get a deep emotional connection. That's why people live here. That's why they work here. That's why they want to come and spend their money here. So we want to try to help keep that character in Geneva. We do that through two different methods. One of them is that we educate the public on local history. We operate 5 historic properties. We have the 2 in Geneva, which are the Fabian Villa, which was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright in 1907, and then Fabian's Japanese Garden, which was designed in 1910, put in 1910. We also are kind of a voice for the community. We offer guidance on preservation methods and local ordinances for the public. We don't charge anything for that. We're supported by our members and by the museum visits, which you should all come to as often as you can, please. Have you all been to the Fabian?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the gardens? Okay, great.
Yes.
We're actually going to have just a little plug here. We're going to light the gardens for the winter.
Ooh.
So it's going to be really exciting. We hope that you all come and bring your families and all your friends and everybody possibly, so that we can raise a little extra money for ourselves. And then also I just wanted to invite you. We have an event coming up, just give you an idea of some of the education that we do. On Thursday, we have energy efficiency in historic homes. We have a specialist in historic preservation, architect who's going to be coming in and giving a little talk. So you're welcome to come. It's completely free. You could sign up on our website, but you can just come. There's plenty of room. We have like 90 seats there, so we have plenty of room for you if you want to come.
And where will it be?
It'll be at the St. Charles Public Library.
Okay.
At 7 p.m. I can give you all a card if you want to give you a little reminder. Do you mind if I? A little postcard.
At 7 p.m. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep, and our website's on there, so if you need any information that we can provide and help out with, that's what we're here for when it comes to historic preservation. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, this is a great idea.
This is a...
What's that? When is it? Well, we haven't made it official yet, but I will just tell you that we talked about it today. So we're planning to turn them on November 26th, Friday after Thanksgiving. We may change that to the Saturday after Thanksgiving, but it's going to be one of those 2 days. And then we'll have it lit every Friday and Saturday night throughout December, except for Christmas. And then we're also going to light them like on Fridays in January. So the way it works is, we're only going to turn the lights on when we have it open to the public. So they'll be off all the time except for those evenings. We don't know the exact time we're going to do yet, probably 5 to 7. So, yeah, it's like $5 is what we're going to charge for people to come in and see it. And we got a couple places that we're going to set up that you can do pictures at, which will look really beautiful. And
sounds like a nice, cheerful thing to do for the winter.
Yeah. I mean, we've done it in the past, but kind of staff just kind of strung some lights up in the trees. But this year we're hiring Fox Valley Lighting to do it professionally. So it's going to look really, really nice.
Great.
And if this is successful, we have a plan to make it twice as good. So hopefully bring everybody out so we can do it again and again and again to make it kind of a community thing every year. So
Very good. Okay.
any other questions? Cool.
Nope. Well, thank
Thanks.
you.
You'll be seeing more of me.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
I actually lied, I had 3 small things. So thank you, Al, for introducing yourself. I did want to let the commission know you've heard me talk about this ongoing survey project that I've been working on. I have actually engaged a class with the School of the Art Institute in Chicago to assist with helping me get a portion of the survey work done. It's going to work towards their class credits in learning survey techniques, and will also help us get the project moved a little further along, a little quicker than I'm able to do with everything else on my plate. And speaking of everything on my plate, I just want to let you know that we are 6 months into the fiscal year, and I've already hit 2/3 of the permits that I had processed last year in the first 6 months, to give you an idea of how busy we are in processing permits and answering inquiries. So it has been a very busy year for the community development staff already, and it doesn't look like it's slowing down, but I just like to keep you informed that I believe we're at 97 or 98 permits that have been reviewed already this year. Wow. So that's the end of my report.
Okay, very good. Any new business from the commission? Okay, any business from the public? We actually still have public here, which is good.
And I do not see any.
No, nothing from, okay. With that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
And a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Good night.